Vernon Crawford hadn't cried in 4 years. Not when he sold the ranch for half what it was worth. Not when he packed Linda's clothes into boxes and donated them to the church. Not when he drove away from Nebraska with everything he owned in the back of a truck and never looked back. But when he saw the bull standing in pen 47 at the county livestock fair, his throat closed up and his eyes burned like someone had thrown dust in them. Because everyone thought this bull was gone forever. Everyone thought Samson had died alone in a field 4 years ago. Everyone except the man standing in front of him now. The bull stood perfectly still. 2,000 pounds of muscle and memory. Black coat shining in the afternoon sun. Head raised, ears forward, staring, not at the crowd, not at the other animals, at Vernon. And Vernon knew, with a certainty that made his chest ache, that Samson recognized him. The animal he'd abandoned to die was alive, and he remembered. 4 years ago, Vernon Crawford had owned a small cattle ranch outside of Grant, Nebraska. 40 acres, 30 head of cattle. A modest house with a wraparound porch where Linda would sit in the evenings and watch the sun drop behind the hills. They'd been married 23 years, no children, just each other and the land and the animals they raised. Life was simple, hard, but simple. Then Linda got sick. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The kind that doesn't give you time to prepare. The kind that takes everything you thought you knew about the future and burns it to ash. The treatments were expensive, the medications were expensive, the hospital visits, the specialists, the experimental options they tried when nothing else worked. All of it bled them dry. Vernon sold cattle, mortgaged the land, borrowed from everyone who'd lend. And still, it wasn't enough. Then Samson got sick. The calf had been born 6 months earlier. Strong, healthy. Linda had named him herself, said he'd grow up big like the biblical giant. She loved that calf. Would walk out to the barn every morning just to scratch behind his ears and talk to him while Vernon fed the herd. But 3 weeks into Linda's 4th round of chemo, Samson stopped eating. Fever, respiratory infection, the kind that kills fast if you don't treat it aggressive. Dr. Joel Palmer came out, examined the calf, gave Vernon the numbers. $3,000 for treatment. Maybe 50-50 chance of survival. Vernon had $800 left in the bank. That was the mortgage payment. That was Linda's next round of medication. That was keeping the lights on. He couldn't save both, so he chose. He loaded Samson into the truck bed before dawn, wrapped him in a blanket because the calf was shaking so hard his legs wouldn't hold him. Drove 15 miles out to the old grazing land they didn't use anymore, far enough that even if the calf survived, he'd never find his way home. Vernon carried him to a spot under a cottonwood tree. The ground was soft there, shaded. He left 2 buckets of water, a bale of hay, enough to last a few days if by some miracle the calf rallied. But Vernon knew he wouldn't. Dr. Palmer had been clear. Without treatment, Samson had maybe a week, probably less. Vernon crouched down beside the dying calf, put his hand on Samson's head, felt the heat of the fever radiating through the hide. "I'm sorry, boy," Vernon whispered. His voice cracked. "I'm so sorry. I don't have the money to save you. Linda's dying and I can't lose her and I can't save both of you and I have to choose and I hate myself for it, but I have to choose her." Samson's big dark eyes looked up at him, too weak to move, too sick to understand, but trusting. Because that's what animals do. They trust the people who care for them, even when those people fail them. Vernon stood up, walked back to the truck. His hands were shaking so bad he could barely grip the wheel. He drove away and didn't look back. Told Linda the calf had died in the night. Peaceful, no suffering. She cried for hours. Vernon held her and lied through his teeth and felt something inside him break that never healed. 3 months later, Linda was gone. All that money, all that sacrifice, all those impossible choices. And she died anyway. Vernon sold the ranch within a month. Couldn't stay. Couldn't look at the empty barn or the empty house or the empty space where Linda used to sit on the porch. He moved to Colorado, worked construction, lived in a rented room above a hardware store, tried to forget. But forgetting doesn't work when you're haunted. So after 4 years, he came back. The county livestock fair looked exactly the same. Rows of pens holding cattle, pigs, sheep, families walking between exhibits, kids eating cotton candy, the smell of manure and fried food thick in the August heat. Vernon wandered through the cattle section without purpose, just looking, just remembering what it felt like to belong to this world. Then he stopped at pen 47. A massive Angus bull stood inside, easily the biggest animal in the entire fair. Black coat gleaming, muscles rippling under the hide, calm, confident. Vernon stared. Something about the bull felt familiar. The way he held his head, the set of his shoulders. But that was impossible. Vernon started to turn away. The bull's head swung toward him, slowly, deliberately, and their eyes met. Everything stopped. The noise of the fair faded. The crowd disappeared. There was only the bull and the man, staring at each other across 4 years and 15 miles and a choice that had destroyed them both. Vernon's breath caught. The bull went rigid, every muscle locked, his nostrils flared.
Samson.
Vernon saw the scar then,
Is that really you?
small, barely visible on the bull's left shoulder, from an IV line, 4 years ago. No, Vernon whispered. No, it can't be. But it was. The bull took one step forward, pressed his massive body against the pen rail, close enough that Vernon could see his reflection in those dark, knowing eyes. A voice spoke beside him. "You admiring my bull?" Vernon turned. A man in his late 30s stood there, clean work shirt, friendly smile. "Marcus Grant," the man said, extending his hand. "I own Samson here. Best bull I've ever raised." The name hit Vernon like a fist. Samson. His hand moved automatically, shook Marcus's. His voice came out strangled. "Samson. Yeah, got him 4 years ago. Sick as hell. Some bastard left him in a field to die." Marcus's smile faded into something harder. Took 2 months to save him. Nearly didn't make it, but he pulled through. Vernon couldn't breathe. Marcus continued, oblivious. "He's a champion now. Strongest bull in 3 counties. Gentle as they come, too. Smart. It's like he remembers everything." Vernon's eyes burned. "He does," Vernon said quietly. Marcus frowned. "What?" Vernon looked at Samson. The bull hadn't moved, hadn't blinked, just stood there staring at the man who'd left him to die alone under a cottonwood tree.
I told you, Marcus.
"I know this bull,"
It was never
Vernon
about the
said.
money.
Marcus's expression
I did it
shifted.
because I had to.
"How?" Vernon's throat tightened. "Because 4 years ago, he was mine, and I'm the bastard who left him in that field." The words fell like stones.
You don't know what it's like to watch
Marcus took a
everything you
step
built
back.
crumble.
His face went from confusion to
Trying,
disgust in
son, but the
seconds.
pain, it just
You?
won't let go.
Vernon nodded, tears burning trails down his weathered face. "My wife was dying. I couldn't afford to save them both, so I chose her." His voice broke. "And I lost them both anyway." Marcus stared at him, silent, judging. But Vernon didn't care about Marcus. He only cared about the bull, about Samson, who stood perfectly still, breathing heavy, eyes locked on the man who'd abandoned him. And Vernon realized with a grief so deep it felt like drowning, that some choices don't get second chances. Some mistakes live forever, even when the dying survive. Marcus Grant didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The silence between the 3 of them, man, and bull, carried more weight than words ever could. Samson hadn't moved, his massive body pressed against the pen rail, close enough that Vernon could smell the hay on his breath and see the rise and fall of his chest. The bull's eyes never left Vernon's face, not with rage, not with fear, with something
This has
worse.
To be done tonight, Vernon. We can't wait any
Recognition.
longer.
Marcus finally spoke. His voice was cold, controlled. "You left a 6-month-old calf to die in a field." It wasn't a question. Vernon nodded. "Yes. Why?" "I told you, my wife." "I don't care about your wife." Marcus's jaw tightened. I care about the animal you abandoned. The one I found 3 days later, barely breathing, covered in his own filth because he was too weak to move. Vernon flinched like he'd been struck. Marcus continued. Dr. Palmer and I worked on him for 48 hours straight. IV fluids, antibiotics, oxygen. We didn't think he'd make it through the first night. Vernon's hands trembled. But he did, Marcus said. He fought, harder than any animal I've ever seen, like he had something to prove. Vernon looked at Samson, at the powerful, healthy bull standing in front of him. I thought he'd be dead, Vernon whispered. I thought leaving him there was the same as putting him down. Just slower. It was crueler, Marcus said flatly. You left him alone, suffering, wondering why the person he trusted abandoned him. Vernon's chest ached. I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. You made yours. The words landed like a hammer. Vernon turned to Marcus. You don't understand. Linda was dying. The cancer was eating her alive. We'd already spent everything. The house was mortgaged. The cattle were sold. I was working double shifts just to pay for her medication. His voice cracked. The vet said Samson needed $3,000, and even then he might not survive. I had $800 left. That was it. That was all I had between us and losing everything. And you chose to save your wife. Yes. And she died anyway. Vernon's face crumpled. Yes. Marcus shook his head. So you lost them both. And now you come back here 4 years later. What? Looking for forgiveness? I don't deserve forgiveness. No, you don't. Vernon looked at Samson again. The bull was still watching him, still waiting. For what, Vernon didn't know. Can I... Vernon's voice broke. Can I touch him? Marcus's eyes narrowed. Why? Because I need to know if he remembers me. Really remembers. He remembers, Marcus said coldly. Look at him. He hasn't moved since you walked up. That's not coincidence. Vernon took a step closer to the pen. Samson's body tensed, but he didn't back away. Vernon raised his hand slowly, extended it toward the rail. Samson, he said quietly. It's me. It's Vernon. The bull's nostrils flared. His head lowered slightly, sniffing. Memory is stronger in animals than people realize. Scent, especially, stays locked in their minds like a photograph. Samson smelled Vernon's hand, and his entire body shuddered, because he knew. 4 years, 15 miles, a lifetime of separation, but the scent was the same. The man who'd carried him as a calf, who'd fed him, who'd scratched behind his ears in the barn while the sun came up. The man who'd wrapped him in a blanket and driven him into the middle of nowhere and left him to die. Samson's breath came faster. His eyes locked on Vernon's face, and Vernon saw it. The question animals can't ask, but their eyes scream anyway. Why? Vernon's voice shattered. I'm sorry, God, Samson, I'm so sorry. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought you were going to die anyway, and at least this way you wouldn't suffer in a barn while I watched. I thought I was being kind. Tears ran down his face unchecked, but I was wrong. I was a coward. I couldn't handle watching you die, so I left you alone to do it. And you didn't die. You survived. And I wasn't there. Samson took one slow step forward. His massive head came through the rail opening, close enough to touch. Vernon froze. Marcus tensed beside him. Careful. If he decides he wants revenge, he'll take your arm off. But Samson didn't attack. He lowered his head until his forehead rested against Vernon's chest. The weight nearly knocked Vernon backward. And then the bull just stood there, breathing, remembering. Vernon raised a shaking hand and placed it on Samson's head. The hide was warm, solid, real, alive. You lived, Vernon whispered. You lived and became everything Linda said you would. Strong, powerful, a champion. Samson exhaled, a long, slow breath that sounded almost like relief. Vernon looked at Marcus through tear-blurred eyes. Thank you. For saving him. For giving him the life I couldn't. Marcus's expression didn't soften. I didn't do it for you. I know. And he's not yours anymore. He's mine. Legally, morally, in every way that matters. Vernon nodded. I know that too. So don't come back here thinking you can reclaim him. Don't think this moment changes anything. Vernon pulled his hand back slowly, stepped away from the pen. Samson watched him go but didn't follow. I'm not here to take him back, Vernon said quietly. I just needed to see him, to know he's okay, to tell him I'm sorry. Marcus crossed his arms. And now you have. So you can leave. Vernon looked at Samson one last time. The bull stood tall, strong, everything Vernon had failed to be. Goodbye, Samson, Vernon said, and turned to walk away. But Samson made a sound, low, deep, not aggressive, almost mournful. Vernon stopped. Marcus noticed it too, frowned. He's never made that sound before. Vernon looked back. Samson was staring at him. And in that moment, Vernon understood something that broke him completely. The bull had forgiven him. But forgiveness didn't erase what happened. It didn't bring back the time lost. It didn't change the fact that Vernon had made a choice, and choices have consequences, even when the dying survive. Vernon didn't leave. He couldn't. He walked to a bench 20 feet from Samson's pen and sat down, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. People passed by, families laughing, kids eating funnel cakes, the world moving forward like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Marcus appeared beside him 10 minutes later. Didn't sit. Just stood there with his arms crossed. You're still here.
Like we hoped, Vernon.
I know. I told you to leave. I know that too. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he sighed and sat down. Dr. Palmer told me about you, Marcus said. After I bought Samson, he said there was a rancher who'd lost everything. Wife died. Ranch foreclosed. Disappeared without a trace. He looked at Vernon. That was you. Vernon nodded. Palmer also said you weren't a bad man, just a broken one. Vernon's throat tightened. Joel said that? Yeah. Said you called him every week while your wife was dying, asking if there was anything cheaper, anything that might work. You didn't give up on her, but I gave up on Samson. You made a choice no one should have to make. Marcus leaned back. I've been raising cattle for 15 years, and I can tell you right now, if I was in your position, wife dying, no money, dying calf, I don't know what I would have done. Vernon looked at him. You would have found a way to save both. Maybe. Or maybe I would have done exactly what you did and spent the rest of my life hating myself for it. Marcus gestured toward Samson's pen. That bull right there is the best thing that ever happened to me. He's won every competition I've entered, brought in more stud fees than I can count. But more than that, he's special, smart, loyal. He trusts me. He should. You saved him. And you raised him for the first 6 months of his life. You think he forgot that? You think animals don't remember kindness just because it ended badly? Vernon's eyes burned. Marcus stood. I meant what I said. He's mine. Legally and every other way. But... He paused. If you want to visit him sometimes, I won't stop you. Just don't expect me to like it. Vernon looked up. Why would you let me? Because he made that sound when you walked away. That mournful sound. Marcus's jaw tightened. I've never heard him do that. And I realized something. He doesn't just remember you. Part of him still loves you. Even after what you did. Vernon's chest ached. Animals are better than people that way, Marcus said quietly. They forgive even when they shouldn't. They love even when it hurts them.
You can't keep carrying this.
He walked back toward Samson's pen. Vernon sat there alone. The sun was setting. The fair was winding down. Families packing up. Vendors closing booths. Vernon stood and walked back to Samson one last time. The bull was lying down now, resting. But his eyes opened when Vernon approached. Vernon didn't try to touch him. Just stood at the rail and spoke. I don't expect you to understand, Samson. I don't even understand it myself. I made a choice I thought would save the person I loved most in the world, and it didn't. She died anyway, and I lost you too." His voice cracked. "But you didn't just survive. You became something incredible, and maybe that's enough. Maybe knowing you're okay is all I deserve." Samson's ear flicked. Vernon stepped back. "I'll come visit, if Marcus lets me. Not to take you back, not to ask for anything, just to see you, to remember that something good came out of all that pain." He turned and walked toward the parking lot. Behind him, Samson lifted his head and watched the man disappear into the twilight. The bull didn't make a sound this time, but his eyes followed Vernon until he was gone. And in the silence that remained, something settled between them. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just acknowledgement. That 4 years ago, a man made an impossible choice, and a calf fought to survive it. And now, somehow, they'd both lived long enough to face each other again. That had to mean something, even if neither of them knew what. 6 months passed. Vernon came back every month. He'd drive the 4 hours from Colorado on a Saturday morning, arrive at Marcus Grant's ranch by noon, and spend 2 hours sitting on a fence rail 20 feet from Samson's pasture. He never went inside the fence, never touched the bull, just sat, watched, talked quietly about things that didn't matter. The weather, the drive, how Linda used to love autumn when the cottonwoods turned gold. Samson would graze nearby, sometimes close, sometimes distant. But he always knew Vernon was there. Marcus allowed it, didn't interfere, just watched from the barn with his arms crossed and something complicated in his eyes. On the 6th visit, something changed. Vernon arrived to find Marcus repairing a section of fence near the pasture. "Hand me that wire," Marcus said without looking up. Vernon grabbed it, held it while Marcus twisted the strands tight. They worked in silence for 20 minutes. When the fence was done, Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead and looked at Vernon. "You know anything about cattle?" "Used to. Been a while." "I'm expanding the herd. Need help with feeding and moving stock." Marcus hesitated. "Pays decent, if you're interested." Vernon stared at him. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a chance to be useful instead of sitting on that fence feeling sorry for yourself every month." Vernon's throat tightened. "I live in Colorado. So move back." "I don't know if I can. Can't or won't." Vernon looked at Samson grazing in the distance. "This place has ghosts." "Everywhere has ghosts," Marcus said. "Question is whether you're going to let them run you off or face them." Vernon was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I'll think about it." 2 months later, Vernon moved into the small foreman's cabin on Marcus's property. It wasn't much. 1 room, wood stove, narrow bed, but it had a window that looked out over the pasture where Samson grazed. Vernon worked hard, harder than he had in years, feeding cattle, mending fences, helping Marcus with vaccinations and transport. He didn't talk much, kept to himself. But every evening, he'd sit on the porch of the cabin and watch Samson in the fading light. And slowly, over weeks and months, something shifted. Samson started grazing closer to the cabin, then closer, until one evening the bull walked right up to the porch rail and stood there. Vernon froze. Samson lowered his head, sniffed the air. Vernon slowly extended his hand. The bull stepped forward, let Vernon's palm rest against his forehead. They stayed like that for a long time. Man and bull, broken and healed. Not whole, not fixed, but together. A year after Vernon returned, Marcus found him sitting on the porch at sunset. "You ever regret coming back?" Marcus asked. Vernon thought about it. "Every day." "Then why stay?" "Because regret's easier to carry when you're not running from it." Marcus nodded. "Understood." "Samson's getting old," Marcus said. "He's 8 now. Probably got another 6, 7 good years if we're lucky." Vernon's chest tightened. I know. When he's gone, what will you do? Vernon looked at the bull standing peacefully in the pasture. Strong. Calm. Everything Linda said he'd be. I'll remember him, Vernon said quietly. I'll remember that I failed him once, and that he survived anyway.
I don't know how we're gonna keep this place
And that
running.
surviving doesn't mean forgetting,
These bills, they just keep
but it does
piling
mean
up.
moving
It's all falling
forward.
apart.
Marcus was silent for a moment. Then he pulled an envelope from his jacket, handed it to Vernon. What's this? Ownership papers. For Samson. Vernon's hands shook. Marcus, I can't... You're not taking him. He's still mine. But when I'm gone, or when he's too old to work, he's yours. Legal and binding. Marcus's voice was firm. That bull deserves to spend his final years with someone who understands what it cost for him to survive. And whether you like it or not, that's you. Vernon stared at the papers, at the signature, at the gift he didn't deserve but was being given anyway. Why? He whispered. Because you came back. Most people run from their mistakes. You walked straight into yours and sat with it every month for a year. That takes something most people don't have. Vernon's eyes burned. I abandoned him. And you spent every day since trying to make up for it. That's more than most would do. Marcus stood, walked toward the barn, stopped. He forgave you a long time ago, Vernon. Maybe it's time you forgave yourself. He disappeared into the shadows. Vernon sat alone with the papers in his hands. Across the pasture, Samson lifted his head. Their eyes met in the dying light. And Vernon understood something he'd been too broken to see before. Some mistakes don't get erased. Some choices leave scars that never fully heal. But surviving them, both man and beast, means something. It means that even when you fail the ones you love, even when you make the wrong choice for the right reasons, even when you lose everything, redemption isn't about going back. It's about showing up every day, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts.
If we're gonna
Vernon
expand
folded the
herd,
papers
we
carefully,
need to acquire
put them in
that
his
northern
pocket,
pasture by the
walked
spring.
down to the pasture
It's the
fence.
only way to sustain the
Samson
growth.
walked over,
The offer
pressed
stands,
his
son.
massive head
It's
against
time to
Vernon's
sell.
chest,
Been
and
in my
Vernon
family
whispered the
3
words he should have
generations,
said
Marcus.
4 years ago.
That's a lot
I'm
to
here.
consider.
I'm not leaving. Not again. The bull exhaled. And in that quiet moment between man and animal, something finally settled. Not forgiveness, not redemption, just presence. And sometimes that's enough.